Hello, and welcome to my cellar. I got a couple of things to talk about tonight. I'm saving the most heated for the end, so that if I get carried away, it's at the end and you can just ignore it. Here we are in the middle of the COVID thing. I haven't talked much about that on these videos, but I guess we have to. It's the gigantic elephant in everybody's living room. And it's affect gaming a great deal. I just did another virtual Q&A session, this time for virtual Kobold Con. I'm going to run a virtual game for them at Kobold, or as part of Kobold Con tomorrow night, Saturday night. I've figured out a way to do it on Zoom, and I'm going to be doing it more on a commercial basis starting later this month. I'm going to try my hand at running games and charging a modest sum for people to come play. So we'll see how that goes. We just got a very confusing order. First, we were going to be sheltering in place till the 29th. Now we're not going to be sheltering in place, but we have to wear masks, and they're still figuring out what we're going to do here in Ohio. I'm not complaining. We've flattened our curve in a hurry, and we're doing really well. So I'm not complaining. Okay, here's one of these strange things. Did something like this ever happen to you? Had a coincidence the other day involving a bright green neon green colored rag on my workstation. I picked it up to throw it away, but upon opening it, I was shocked to see it was the top half of a Lake Geneva camp shirt. The odd part is I live 1,000 or so miles away from Wisconsin, and I wrote the vault story thinking about Gary Gygax the day before. I feel eerie writing about it. Yeah, I understand where that's one of those Twilight Zone. Speaking of which, if you were a fan of the old Twilight Zone, I've only watched one of the new ones, and it wasn't bad, but my wife and I are really enjoying that Tales from the Loop. Now, that's sort of weird, steampunky, sci-fi, weird stuff. That's pretty good. Anyway, yeah, isn't it funny how, what triggers what's going on? I often compare my head to a percolator of some sort in the back. I just toss in half-formed ideas, and they roll around in there and they perk a while, and then sometimes they come out and sometimes they don't. But what prompts them to come out and what even prompts them to go in? Who can say? You live 1,000 miles away from Wisconsin. Did you used to live near Wisconsin? Did you go to camp in Wisconsin? How did you get that shirt? There would be the story. Okay. Now, I'm not picking on this edition coming up. Well, only a little. I like 5e because it utilizes the charisma attribute more. What if you have a charismatic player with a PC with a charisma of 8 or 7? Well, bucko, that's what they call role-playing. Role-playing. You're handed a character and you play it. If you're in the drama club and you do tryouts and they hand you the character, you don't get to change it a lot. You can change the way you say the lines, but you don't get to write your own lines. You're going to play the role handed to you. I always liked the idea that we shed that kind of stuff when we sat down at the table. In my past experience with campaigns, I've often found that after a while, the person that ended up being kind of the natural party leader started out as one of the quieter ones that didn't have the force of personality to be listened to right away. It seems to me that the most avid proponents of 5e like it for a lot of the wrong reasons. You know, you play the role you're given, you play the role the character that you generated. That's why it's called role playing. The 6'4" guy that weighs 300 pounds that wants to be a hobbit, let him play a hobbit. As an aside, the first time anybody showed up in costume at a Gen Con would have been in 76. And this great big guy, and I mean he was like 6'3", 260, 270, not necessarily fat, just big, was wearing farmer jeans with only one strap and a kind of a gingham shirt, and was barefooted and had glued orange yarn onto the tops of his feet, and he had red hair, and so he was a hobbit at 6'3" and 270. Oh, okay. The hobbit in my first group was about 6'2" himself. Skinny as a rail, but, you know, I mean, nowhere near. Anyway, point being, 5e players, that you're supposed to play the role. You don't say to the director, no, I don't think Willie Lomax should say this in this scene in Death of a Salesman. You think he should say something else. No, that's not the way it works. That's why they call it role playing. It's an exercise in stretching your mental muscles. None of us go around every day with a broadsword strapped to our hip killing shit. If you got a charismatic player at the table and he's got a charisma, his character has a charisma of 8 or 7, then that's how effective that character is. Doesn't have anything to do with who's playing it. If we all got to sit down and design our own characters without resorting to dice, what a joke that would be, playing in a group of everybody's a 17 or an 18. Yeah, right, okay. The world's really filled with that. You know, this is a role-playing game that needs some basis in reality, and the real world is a good place to start. Okay, here's the guy that I teased last week about claiming that the question was for his wife. Well, he's sticking to his story. Thank you for answering my wife's question. We're very happy to hear that someone else likes Mouse Guard. Speaking of which, you ought to get the illustrated novel. That's really quite good, and I love the artwork in it. I have a question of my own. Okay, this time he'll take it. Have you ever subverted racial types in your campaigns for whatever reason? I.e. elves being mountain-dwelling bird dwellers, dwarves living at sea on huge boats, etc. I find it adds some new cool locations and situations. Well, yes, once I invented a subspecies of fae and made them wicked. They had devolved into wickedness over a period of time, as explained by the backstory. But yeah, I did that. I made these fae who were supposed to be the keepers and the guardians and the protectors of the humid jungle, rainforest type thing, had become evil and perverse over a period of time due to the influences and their isolation, and etc. and etc. And I have been toying with the idea. In fact, I've got some bare bones worked out on a race of seagoing dwarves. Now I know most mythologies have dwarves not liking water, and I'm okay with that. However, in my world, Makanda, there was a cataclysm, mountains sank, new ones rose, etc. So I posited, all right, supposing a really big mountain that was inhabited by dwarves way down below started filling with water because it sank. Well, they'd all go up to the first levels where they first mined, and it stops. And so now they're on a rock sticking out of the middle of the ocean. Sail or starve. And in my world, I like gnomes to be the tinkerers of small things, traps and music boxes and poison locks and things like that. And I like dwarves. My dwarves are artificers. So they've figured out galleys and figured out converted siege weapons to fire a grapple. And so they become pirates. They steal what they need from the outside world, whatever they can't make in their mountain. And so for that reason, they have taken to the sea. Now, it doesn't mean they still don't sink like stones if they go overboard. However, in this thing that I'm working up, they will have safeguards, and they'll be wearing some kind of life belt that doesn't help them float so much as allows them to be pulled back, attracted back up. I'm working on that. But yeah, I think it's more fun to play against type every once in a while. It keeps you and your creative chops honed, and it keeps your players on their toes. And I'm all for keeping players on their toes. Okay. Now, when this shelter in place started, I started reading stories for kids to listen to. And I've really come to rather like it. I'm having trouble getting stuff posted up and uploaded, and I haven't figured it all out yet. But I will get back to reading stories. And someone commented on a story that I wrote called The Mouse King, and said that it was strangely beautiful and opened my eyes to a new side of a story I'm playing a part of, and thanked me, and they meant it seriously. Well, you're welcome. I do enjoy, I don't do voices. I'm not Julie Kavner. I do little voices, but not much. And I like to read expressively. In fact, when I was a lay reader for the Episcopalian Church a long time ago, when I was being recertified, I guess I had to see if I could still read. I was told to tone it down. I was using too much personality in the readings. Well, I always thought if it was some angel proclaiming some, it ought to sound like a proclamation. So anyway, now I got there's three things here on the end of the list. I am still deciding which one I'm going to go for first. I guess it's partially to blame that we're all locked up inside. We're getting a little crazy shit by now. I know I've been, 35, 15, 45, 40, I guess I've been 46 days sheltering in place now. And luckily I have a wonderful wife, and we're working jigsaw puzzles, and we watch TV, and we're not going bug shit yet. But looking on Facebook, mass hysteria is breaking out once again on some tried and true old saws, old hackneyed arguments. Okay. Pronunciation. I love this one, because of course I started it a long time ago with boulet. Well, you know what? I don't care what you call the boulet. If you don't like the way I pronounce it, I don't care. Call it a bullet. It doesn't matter. When it eats you, you're going to be the crap secreted from that digestive system. Call it a boulet, call it a bullet, it won't matter at that point. Then there's drow. Is it drow, as in cow, or is it drow, as in bow? Well, as long as everybody at the table knows which one it is, if you know what they know what you mean, does it make a difference? I called it drow. Gary called it drow. Does that mean it's right necessarily to say drow? I don't know. Gary said it was drow, so I called it drow. I didn't feel it was necessary to get into an argument on whether or not it ought to be dro. As in row. I don't know. But most of all, the stupidest, dumbest of the arguments is the word THAC 0. Yeah, I know, not quite a word. THACO. Some people want to call it THACO. I don't care. You know what it means. What difference does it make? Best meme I've seen on this one before is, I don't know, there are two guys on one of the Discovery or one of the, I don't know, big burly guy with short grizzled gray hair and his son. And they're hollering about THACO. And the son points out that, hey, the guys that invented it say it's THACO. Yeah, okay, we did. And somebody defended that with some interesting rules of English about when is the A long, and is it, we call it armor class AC, not AC or C. Okay, who cares? Who cares? If that's all you got to argue about, hey, life must be good. You must be in tall cotton sipping mint juleps all day long. Here's the next one. Balanced encounters. This one trips me out every time I've seen it, and I've seen it every couple, 3 years for the last 45 years. Balanced encounters. Now tonight I was on a Q&A for KoboldCon, and someone asked a question about modules and balance and whatever, and I made the point. Now I get to elaborate it on here. Those of us that write adventures put down a suggested PC range for one good reason, so that the DM has an idea of what might be a commensurate challenge for his group. You don't take a bunch of 3rd and 4th levels and run them through the Temple of Elemental Evil and expect them to survive. Number one, if they're seasoned players, run them 3rds and 4ths. That's one thing. Maybe if they got 20 years experience under their belt, they'll figure out how to get a 4th level alive through there. By the same token, a bunch of 8, 9 levels, 10th levels, whatever. And I'm when I say levels, I'm using AD&D First Edition or OD&D equivalents, where a 12th level dude was really powerful. With level inflation today, I don't know what level it is. It's kind of like pinball. Back in the day, pinball machines had 4 or 5 digits. That's it. 4 or 5. The wheels. And then they had to jazz it up. And now they got 6 digits. And now they got 7 digits. And now they got 8 digits. And where bumpers that used to be worth 50, then they became worth 100, and then they were worth 250, and then they were worth 500. And it's all the same thing. You hit a certain number of bumpers a certain number of times. You knock down a certain number of targets a certain number of times. You get a free game from the machine. It doesn't matter how many zeros are on there. All right, it just looks better when there's 6 or 7 scoring reels on the back of the machine. Of course, it also just increases the odds of a mechanical failure. But hey, don't let that get in the way of common sense. Balanced encounters. I've used this example before. You got a bunch of new people that are new to playing the game. Little experience, no experience. They roll up their first and second level characters, and you throw out some adventure hooks. Something's causing pigs and calves to disappear over in this part of the Shire. Something's causing some, break-ins or something. You give them three measured hooks. The third one being rumors of a wyvern building a nest over in the hills, half days away. Now, there have been parties that will immediately run out and try to take on the wyvern and wonder why they ended up wyvern crap. You weren't ready. Now, the wiser course would be, well, let's go see what's eating the pigs and the calves and acquire some experience along the way. Learn some things. And then, now that we have a little experience, let's go see that other problem. And only after you've solved that problem and you've acquired some more experience and come up a level or two, only then, barring the fact that you found the holy hand grenade of Antioch in the meantime, intend to use that on a wyvern, barring that, only then do you decide, okay, let's go see what's up with this wyvern thing. Because now you're not a bunch of 1s and 2s. You're 2s and 3s, or 3s and 4s, or maybe 4s and 5s. You see where I'm going with here. Balance in a module, an adventure. Call it what you want. As a DM, you sit down and you read through what's facing them. All right. We do the same thing when we're writing them. Those of us that write them, we sit down and we figure out, okay, what kind of challenge we're going to give them. I use a sliding scale about hit points of the monsters versus hit points of the players, and et cetera, et cetera. And we figure out what's commensurate. It's no fun for a bunch of mid or higher levels to run around killing goblins all the time. You got to kill too many of them. If you hearken back or can locate the original small booklets, there were rules and mathematical formulae that the higher level you were, the less you got for that low level thing you just killed. If you're a 2nd level and you kill a handful of goblins, you get full points. If you're an 8th level and you kill the same handful of goblins, you get less than the 2nd level guy got. Now that got ignored and overlooked for a long time because it wasn't explained very well, but that was the original concept. If your group's a bunch of higher level characters, you're not going to have any fun in low level adventures. Unless their idea of just going out and killing shit and taking their stuff, in which case you can save yourself the money and just make up something where you shower them with gold for doing crap. Balanced encounters don't exist. Let me rephrase that. In 10% of random chance, balanced encounters probably exist. The rest of the time, 45% you're stronger, 45% they're stronger. That's life. That's life. I address this to the guys. Well, I don't know, perhaps it applies to some of the women that might listen, if there are any women that listen to this. If you were bullied or, you had an issue, you figured it, you worked it out to your advantage when you had the advantage. You take on that wyvern building the nest when you have a reasonable chance of killing it. It's no fun just showering the players with sacks of gold dropping from the sky. Well, it would be if it was crushing them and killing them. But other than that, for no risk. There's got to be risk for reward. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. That should be your rule of thumb. Now, if you, as a bunch of players, want to go take a silly, not very well thought out risk and go run off and fight that wyvern when you're not prepared, then you deserve to die. Your character. And if by some chance you happen to defeat it, you'll die in the next one because you'll get cocky. It's like becoming a boxer as you're growing up. You punch in a different weight class as you grow up and get bigger. It's like playing soccer. You field a team and you start out in one league, and as you get good, you go up to another league, and as you get better, you go up to another league, and eventually you end up in the Prem League in England, or the Bundesliga, or La Liga, or even the MLS in the United States, which has actually become a much better game in the last 5 or 6 years than it used to be. Anyway, balanced encounters are a myth. They're a myth. You might as well just go to a game reserve, pay your money, walk in and shoot your bear. That's how I look at it when you don't balance risk with reward. And now I want to address perhaps the stupidest, most ignorant thing to come up about role-playing that I have seen in recent years. The social justice warriors and the snowflakes have found a new battle cry. Orcs are racist. Orcs are racist. Number one, the only way orcs could be racist is if the Uruk-hai picked on the orcs of Moria as a class, as a habitual cultural thing. Then, and only then, could you say orcs are racist. Are they speciesists? Which is a word, actually, by the way. Look it up. Speciesist. I-S-T. Yeah, okay. So are player characters. Because they basically think that everything that isn't a race that can be a player character is fair game. Kill them and take their stuff. Players are much more racist. No, they're not either. They're speciesists. Why would you... Number one, you're misusing the term. That shows lack of education and or willful ignorance. And why would you care that orcs are racist? If you want to know where orcs come from, I suggest you go look at British propaganda posters produced for the home front during World War I. World War I is the battle that J.R.R. Tolkien fought in, and that formed his opinions. Go look at those posters. Go look at the graphics. Those are orcs. Those are orcs, not... Yeah, I just don't understand how... number one, I don't know what... I guess the SJWs and the snowflakes have a spinner somewhere. And they spin that arrow to see what it's going to come up on so they can scream about that. Orcs are racist. Orcs are evil. They're monsters. This is a game. You're worried about orcs being racist? Well, then you better get into the gnolls and the goblins and everything else. And, gee, I don't know. Does that make purple worms inherently evil because they eat detritus and offal and carrion? Guess not. They eat anything. They don't care. So I guess they wouldn't be racist. Orcs are racist. The term, the terminology does not apply. Number one, we're in a fantasy game. You could say they're sexist too, because there's no mention whatsoever of female orcs. Of course, they're created. But if they're created, then how did you end up with half orcs? Because they must have some sort of biological mating thing. According to the mythology, the Uruk-hai are part men that were suborned and subordinated with orcs and crossbred by Saruman. Yeah, okay, whatever. They're specious. Yeah, they want to kill everything that isn't one of them. But that doesn't make them a racist. Racists are when one division within a species picks on another division. When whites look down or pick on blacks. When Hispanics decide that they're going to pick on Asians. Okay? In this case, race, which is a loaded, baited word to begin with, race refers to different types of Homo sapiens. And if one type picks on the other or continually preaches that they're inferior, that's racism. It's speciesism if you slaughter cows. Orcs are speciesists because they kill everything that isn't an orc that their master orders. I know that you SJWs and you snowflakes are running out of things to do, all locked in your little cellars, festering in your own juices, growing more toxic by the day. This is a good one. In a scale of 1 to 1,000 on absurdity, this has got to be at least a 900. Find something better to do. I just, orcs are racist. The rampant stupidity is just mind-boggling. I guess they're confused between what a race and a species is. I don't know. In any event, I've been babbling here for a little over a half an hour, so I guess it's time to wrap this up. I know you're bored and there's not much to do, but you're not giving me a whole lot of comments and feedback either, so I got to make up this stuff to talk about. So I feel like you won't be disappointed when you sit down and put the milk on your Cheerios on Saturday morning. So, feedback. How are you dealing with this crazy crap that's going on? I'm playing remotely with my friends and virtually for the con. How are you doing? How are you getting by? We've got at least a couple more weeks here in Ohio where we're restricted somewhat. Though I guess, oh yeah, hey, great news. Dog groomers and barbers open today. I just can't understand how essential is a dog groomer or a barber or a manicurist. If you need your nails done, learn how to do it yourself, you lazy bimbo. And on your hair, hey, cut it yourself or wait. It's not going to kill you. It's not like you're going into the office. It's not like you're cruising the bars trying to impress anybody. That gives you an idea of where people's priorities are when they're losing their shit because they can't get a haircut or they can't get their dog trimmed. Oh yeah, God knows that's important. The fate of the human race hinges on whether your dog gets clipped or not. I guess your dog's self-esteem is at stake. God knows we can't have a bunch of depressed dogs. Hope you're not depressed, though. Give me some comments, give me some feedback, and I'll say to you, hang in there. Sneeze in your elbow. Wash your hands a lot. Don't touch your face. Wear a mask when you go out. Stay safe. Be smart. Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.